Welcome back to the Cajun Strong Style Podcast, 1037 Games exclusive pro wrestling podcast. And I've been dying to kind of do some more rankings because it's always fun. I did it a while back looking at the entire Raw and SmackDown rosters after, the draft, which was fun. But at the same time, it left something in me because during WrestleMania season, we did a lot of tier list rankings. But honestly, I wanted to do more of this. And it feels apropos to go ahead and talk about the King of the Ring winners and ranking the ones from the pay-per-views. I'm not going to do the ones from back in the 80s because those are kind of hard to quantify. I know you know who they are, but it's like, to a certain extent, because you didn't have week-to-week programming, you didn't have them really get these huge pushes, and the only one that really got a huge push and sustained was the Macho King Randy Savage in 1987. And he really kind of took that mantle of Macho King and ran with it till the retirement match against the Ultimate Warrior that eventually led to Macho Man Randy Savage marrying Miss Elizabeth and kind of becoming a babyface for the remainder of his time in the WWF and then going to WCW. That was something really cool. But we didn't see the WWE make this an official pay-per-view until 1993. And that's kind of where we're going to start here. Obviously, that show we're not going to mention anymore has the King of the Ring final on Thursday afternoon. But I want to go ahead and put this in perspective. And for this list, I'm going to go ahead and give you some of my criterion. Yes, there will be some personal bias in this list, but I think I'm going with basing it off of what they did after being crowned. And in terms of the time frame that I'm going to use, I'm going to go ahead and take from King of the Ring, from the time they were crowned until like 3 or 4 months after. Because that's typically that time frame when they can either run with the gimmick or they really start to get pushed to that next echelon in the case of some of the more top tier guys. I mean, you look at it, for the most part, winning the King of the Ring was basically a fast track to you getting a main event at SummerSlam a few months later. And you can definitely say that with a lot of these guys. Only one I don't think had that off top has to be, without a doubt, Bret Hart, the first one to win the King of the Ring. He was already an established guy. He had an opportunity to win it, but we'll get to him later. And we'll kind of count it down from 15. There's been 15 winners so far of the King of the Ring. After Thursday, there will be 16. And I think if Xavier Woods does indeed win it, he could probably move it into the top 10 very easily. If not, I'd say the top 5, because he is such a great worker, and I think he'd absolutely take this thing and run with it. Now we'll get controversial right out the gate. Number 15 is going to be Mabel. There's no doubt in my mind, it's King Mabel is the worst King of the Ring of all time. Yes, Billy Gunn got buried to hell. We'll talk about him in a minute. But go back and look at the King Mabel reign. He basically injured 2 wrestlers and 2 top name wrestlers in the WWF in short order. The Undertaker crushed his orbital bone and then injured Kevin Nash's back in that match at SummerSlam. And after that, after you injure 2 top flight wrestlers, his push got destroyed. He was never the same again. And, if he was a better wrestler, if he was more of a safe worker, I think things would be a lot better. To a certain extent, that's pretty much what I've talked about Nia Jax in the past, being very unsafe to work with. If she was Queen of the Ring and then got a fast track to a women's title match and potentially injured Charlotte Flair, let's use her as an example here, or Becky Lynch, I guarantee you the heat would be on her would be immense, especially because she's already hurt Becky Lynch before. Remember what happened during that invasion angle? I believe that was back in 2018. That kind of really cemented Becky Lynch as being a top flight babyface. It worked in one sense, but I guarantee you it would not work again, especially if she was out for a significant period of time. Number 14 is Billy Gunn. And I think it's just more of the fact that he was a victim of being paired with The Rock. If he had just won King of the Ring and stayed around that range where he was, instead of getting pushed to a match with The Rock, who I believe was champion at the time, and you push him in an angle with The Rock, you kind of set him up for failure. And Billy Gunn just basically got destroyed. And I'm amazed he was able to still have a character, still have a career in the WWF years later. Because that hurt him a lot. And he got absolutely buried. And the big reason why I have Mabel at 15 is because King Mabel also came during one of the worst times of the WWF. Billy Gunn was just more in that best of times, but he's probably one of the worst King of the Rings. It will continue getting more controversial because I'd love to put the more modern ones being at the bottom of this list. But I feel like Ken Shamrock, 1998 King of the Ring, has no point to me. I didn't even remember him doing this. He's a legit badass, yes. Ultimate Fighter, absolutely a phenomenal worker, just could run circles around you. But he didn't need it, number one, and largely nothing big happened for him after this. He was still a relevant force. He was legit. He was built up in a certain way. And he's just a badass in general. He didn't need it. It's a lot like when you think about certain superstars. Like, for instance, Bray Wyatt. All due respect, I don't think he ever needed the WWE Championship to establish himself. Just like Ken Shamrock didn't need King of the Ring. That's why he lands at number 13 on my list. Number 12, we go more modern. King Sheamus. Sheamus was already strapped to a rocket ship at this point. He already had won WWE Gold a couple times over. He didn't need it, and it didn't help him. His crown was awesome, don't get me wrong, but it just didn't necessarily do anything for me. Same thing with Wade Barrett, who lands at number 11. And unlike Sheamus, Wade Barrett got like so close to the sun and it got destroyed, a lot like Icarus. And we hear that story all the time. And this gave Barrett some new life, but it was honestly, he was out of steam at this point. You already kind of just destroyed him over and over and over and over again. Bad News Barrett was a really good gimmick, but only got him so far. You had the League of Nations thing, then you had the Cosmic Kingdom, or whatever it was called. King Barrett did him no favors. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great. Now, number 10, I could probably put him a lot lower. But I'll say this, he took the ball and ran with it and made himself even more of an ass. And that's Baron Corbin. King Corbin was a horrible gimmick because it's Baron Corbin just existing. And he's absolutely he's just a go-away heat type of guy. And I almost felt like putting this lower on the list. Simply because of the fact that it's now led to him having the Happy Corbin gimmick and Madcap Moss. Like, that gimmick is so... I can't believe it actually is happening. But Baron Corbin lands slowly in number 10. I wish I could rearrange it, but that's kind of where I'm landing on this list. William Regal lands at number 9. And it's a classic what might have been case. Because I think William Regal, as King of the Ring, had so much potential. Go watch that stuff after he won King of the Ring and became this, like, GM drunk with power. This king that was drunk with power. And it was so cool just to see how that storyline played out. If not for the 60-day suspension he suffered, I think Regal would have had a really good kind of thank you push and have like one more Intercontinental title reign, or maybe even have an opportunity to vie for the World Heavyweight title, which could have been a great story in and of itself. This is a guy that absolutely deserved a King of the Ring reign that was good, not great. It was really fun, but it got cut a little bit too early. Then you saw him kind of go down the card for obvious reasons. And he's always been a consistent worker, entertaining superstar. His facial expressions, still to this day, are really good. And having a king that gets drunk with power would have been a really fun angle to run with, but of course got cut short. That's why he goes number 9. He'd probably be a lot higher if we got to see the big payoff. Number 8, Triple H, not bad, but not great. He helped form DX and kind of became the leader less than a year later, but mainly feuded with Owen Hart over the European title for much of the year, and then going into 1998. It was kind of a weird, wonky situation with the WWE and Triple H. Triple H should have won it a year earlier. He was planned to, in fact, if not for the curtain call, but he kind of lands firmly in the middle of the pack. And this one's going to probably be a little controversial as well, but I think you'll understand why. Bret Hart. He was already established as a top guy at this point, didn't really need it, but he did a good job with it. got involved with Jerry Lawler in a fun feud that wound up being voted as the feud of the year. Something I didn't necessarily expect to see, but okay. And then it ended, and he won the title again the next year at Mania 10, beating Yokozuna in the main event, also having a phenomenal opening contest with Bret Hart, really kind of establishing himself even more as that top guy in the post-Hulk Hogan era. Then you have number 6, Brock Lesnar. You got to remember, Brock Lesnar absolutely flew up to the top of the card within a few months. The King of the Ring tournament was the absolute opportunity for him to kind of go even further. We're talking about Cam Grimes going to the moon. This guy went like to the moon and then some. I think he went all the way damn near to the sun. That's how good that year was for him. Probably one of the best rookie years of all time. And you think about it. This was that moment where you knew he was going to be pushed to the top of the card. You started to hear things about The Rock getting away from wrestling, going to Hollywood. Stone Cold had walked out a couple months prior, or a month prior, because he was going to face Brock Lesnar on free TV, which I can understand why he did that. This was that megastar moment. He had a really fun match against Test and then RVD in the final when he caught him on that crossbody and turned it into the F5. That was a fantastic moment. And obviously he didn't become the King gimmick, but damn if that didn't like pretty much stamp him as one of the next guys and won the title 2 months later from The Rock, and the rest, as they say, is history. That was star making. Number 5 is Booker T. He's in our top 5, largely because no one pulled off the King gimmick better in this modern era than Booker T. He completely leaned into that damn thing. He won the world title a month later and kept the train rolling. His gimmick was highly entertaining. Like, if you go watch the video of him doing commentary about Batista, Batista is down. Like, he absolutely had fun with that gimmick and just ran with it for a year. And then was released in 2007, wound up going to TNA. But he kept that gimmick until he left the company. And he did a fantastic job with that. A really cool theme song. The gimmick worked for him. And he made it work. And it was highly entertaining. So that's a big reason why he's number 5 on my list. Number 4, Kurt Angle. It's a lot of the same reasons why I bring up, Brock Lesnar. Kurt Angle had one of the best rookie years in company history. He was already pushed as a top guy, but this was that stamp home. 3 months later, no mercy. He winds up winning the title from The Rock. Yes, there was some interference in there, but he managed to win damn near every title within a year. He was Eurocontinental champion, and he won the WWE title within a year. He was like to the damn moon from November of 99 to October of 2000. That really speaks to how good he was and how much he took to the wrestling business like a fish to water. Number 3, and this is where personal bias plays in. He broke out of his shell a lot in this reign, and we're talking about Edge. Because he was largely a tag team guy. He was built as a tag team technician. He did a great job with it with Christian, but him having that feud really put him over as a single superstar and broke out of that proverbial shell. And he also had, we talk about crowns, he had the damn Stanley Cup trophy be his trophy for the King of the Ring tournament, which was so damn cool as somebody who was starting to get into the WWE a lot more in 2001 since WCW had been bought out. I vividly remember that. Vividly remember when Edge turned on Christian, hit him with a concerto, and just that story was so damn fun. Number 2, I think we go controversial again. A lot of people probably would put him as number 1, but I'll go number 2. And that is Stone Cold Steve Austin. He was hands down one of the most influential superstars of all time. He managed to put together a great gimmick. He won King of the Ring in 1996, and he managed to turn a moment that really wasn't meant to be into a moment that changed the industry. Austin 316. That's all you need to say about that Stone Cold Steve Austin King of the Ring. Didn't really do much in 96, but it wasn't until 1997, 98 when he really started to get into his own. But that was a moment when he hit that part. He knocked it out of the park and then some with the Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass promo. and he made himself a megastar almost overnight and became the face of the Attitude Era, one of the top draw superstars in wrestling history. Seriously, he is probably he's on everybody's Mount Rushmore. You can't have a Mount Rushmore and not put Stone Cold Steve Austin on it. And King of the Ring 96 was that exact moment where he went from good hand to superstar and main event guy. That was the moment when you knew something was brewing. Now, number one, I got to go with Owen Hart, the 1994 King of the Ring. The King of Hearts, he called himself that for a reason. And he probably had a really good run. He never won the WWF title. He's one of those guys that deserved it but never won it. And this was a phenomenal him winning, and then him turning that into one of the best SummerSlam main events of all time and one of the best cage matches the WWE ever did for a pay-per-view. I think the only other one that could kind of match is, or at least personally, it's been Angle from a Raw in 2001, because that one is always just in my mind, seeing, the multiple Germans, the moonsault off the top of the cage. This is absolutely an S-tier cage match and deserving of one of the best SummerSlam main events of all time. And it kind of wrapped up in a nice little bow the entire angle that was built up over the course of a year, going back to Survivor Series 93. And it speaks to how WWE back then, and it helped with the fact you don't have weekly TV to kind of deal with as much, because it's just a 1 hour show. Raw was at the time, and you had superstars, so you didn't necessarily need to tell a whole story in a matter of months. You told a story over a year, and it all came to a head with a main event for the WWF title on the line, and you were highly invested in that. So I think just on that alone, King Owen Hart, the King of Hearts, deserves to be number one on my list.